'Cause I got high. I was gonna pay my child support, but then I got high. My favorite part of that whole song is he says, I was gonna pay my child support, but then I got high. And then somebody in the background goes, no, you wasn't. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Martin. I
How you
don't like
doing?
I don't like saying Martin because I feel dumb
What?
because in like American English we don't say the T. And it's just like
Oh,
Martin. Like, where's the
Martin.
T? Martin.
You leave it out. Yes.
Why? Why
Martin.
do we do that? Why was I raised that way? Somebody
I don't
screwed me
know.
up. I don't know. Is this part of the episode?
Yeah, dude. There's a
Oh,
thing in Manhattan, I think, or like Massachusetts, maybe, where they pronounce the T as a D.
Martin.
Martin, yeah.
Ugh.
Ew.
Actually, I feel like that's better. At least I can like
What?
recognize
No.
that consonant. When it's just Martin, it's like, why are you saying it like that? Why is there a pause?
Welcome back to Hogwash. I'm Martin Toadland. I'm here with Mike the Lummox. Mike, how are you? It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you again too. I've been thinking about, I've been putting a lot of work obviously into editing the episode and putting out clips and stuff like that, which got like no engagement. Hey, that's okay. That's okay. I actually hired 2 people to help with content production, people who like really know social media, people who are younger than me. So
Yeah.
it's going to get better. But what were your reflections on last week's episode, our first episode?
I actually think it went really well. Obviously, it wasn't perfect, but we have a lot of like positive momentum and things we can build on. And I also just want to say that I'm really grateful for everybody who reached out, gave us some honest feedback and told us things that we could improve on and told us things that they liked. And I got a lot of positive messages saying that they really enjoyed the dynamic and the chemistry and told us that they shared it with other people. So just thanks to everybody who tuned in for the first episode. And thank you for being here again if you're back.
I think the coolest thing about us individually is that if you meet me off of this podcast, I am exactly the same in real life.
Yes.
I really don't change a thing. And I think it's the
Yeah.
same for you too.
Okay. Well, thank you. I definitely feel that about you. I don't know if I'm that aware of how I act myself, but that's 100% true about you, at least, that you are truly yourself in all situations. And that's one of the reasons why I think you're such a good friend. It's so fun to hang out with because you're just 100% Mike all the time, no matter where you are or who you're with.
Bro, love you. We gotta throw in some jabs here. I don't know. This is way too much gushing and stuff. No, we'll get there. So we'll tell people, what are we going to talk about today?
Oh, today we are talking about, well, I know we wanted to kind of reflect a little bit on last week. I don't know if you still want to do this, but you also talked about how you maybe wanted to offer a small mea culpa or an apology.
Yeah. Let me get that out of the way. I felt like last week I was a little bit meaner than I want to be. To Jack Dorsey. I called him a fucking weirdo because he eats 5 meals a week and it's only spaghetti. I mean, it is weird, but you know what? To each their own. I mean, shit, I eat probably 30 meals a week and it's all Payway and Panda Express. So like, like to each
Who's
their
the weirdo?
own.
Is that what
Exactly.
you found out? Like, who is the weirdo here?
Exactly. I mean, look, in the hierarchy of tech oligarchs and what kind of assholes they are and, you know, how much they grovel to kind of authoritarian like figures and stuff. He's not one of the worst. And I can live with that. I can live with the guy who eats 5 meals a week and it's just spaghetti and he goes to like 10 days a year. No, I'm not kidding. 10 days a year to silent meditation retreats. I can live with that. That's okay. Do I think it's weird? Sure. But that's just judgmental. And I don't want to be a judgmental person. So I will do better. I will do better.
All right. Thank you. Well, it's good to be honest like that. It shows a willingness to kind of at least learn and if you feel like you did something wrong, you know, be open about it. We are talking about AI and how it won't eliminate as many jobs as you think. We're also going to talk about AI economics and if it's actually cost effective. And I know that you wanted to follow up on a little bit about what you talked about last week. I want to talk about a very funny court case coming out of Ohio featuring everybody's favorite rapper, Afroman. And then we're getting into the It's a great song. And then we're talking about the biggest L's of the week, including Kash Patel's edgy teenage sneakers, the Fed refusing to raise interest rates, and SpaceX demanding changes to the NASDAQ, and also a very funny politics thing out of my home country regarding IKEA and bicycle parking spaces. Okay.
All righty.
All right, Mike, I know you wanted to start us off by talking a little bit about and also expanding on your points last week about the effects of AI on the job market and the economy. So why don't you take it from here?
Yeah. Last week I talked about the fact that AI won't eliminate as many jobs as we think. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think I was super clear about all the points I wanted to make because I had so many thoughts in my head.
Yeah.
And I have spent a lot of time thinking about it this week. And how would I debate with myself if I was debating myself from last week? And where are some of the blind spots? So
Mm-hmm.
here's the thing that I want people to take away from this. I strongly believe that AI won't eliminate as many jobs as people think. And I'll tell you
Yeah.
why with data
Yeah.
and logic. And you could tell me if you think I'm wrong. And
All right.
you, Martin, or anyone else listening.
Yes, please. Please
Job
hit us up.
job cuts are the easiest way to show ROI from AI, which is why CEOs are like forcing those through.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not actually where the value is coming from. Studies from HBR and Active Track show that when AI saves people time, they're actually
Yeah.
repurposing that time into more strategic work. So if you think about an example like a customer-facing professional, like an account manager, I
Yeah.
used that example last week. Let's say they can manage 10 customers today. It's not like they're going to be able to manage 20 customers using AI instead of 10. It's just
Yeah.
that they're doing 50% more work for each of those 10 customers. They're doing more analysis, more outreach, more strategic conversations. And so the value comes from the quality of the outcomes. If you're doing more of all of those things, you should have better outcomes, which means more renewal rates and more new prospects and expansion of sales. All
Yeah.
of the things that an account manager is supposed to do. And that's just a lot harder to measure because you need to have had a baseline pre AI, or at least a baseline at some point. How long did it take a person to do each task before AI or with AI today? And how many more of those tasks are they able to do with AI? And how does that correlate to those customer outcomes? It's just a hard thing to measure. The
Yeah.
easiest thing to measure is we're cutting labor, which is the largest expense that any company has, which is exactly why CEOs are so horny about AI and why the expenditure around AI is so hyped. That is the potential, is to cut labor force. That's what people think, but it's not actually what's happening.
But
Now,
aren't they just funneling the cost from labor into AI data centers and development and whatnot? Or
yes, and I will get into that in a minute because you're
mm,
absolutely right. Nobody's talking about the unit economics of AI. Now, some jobs will get cut. About 3.9% of workers are in jobs that will very likely be cut by AI. These are clerical work, data entry work,
mm,
and unfortunately, 86% of those workers are women, which is really sucks and it deserves a conversation, but it's not nearly the kind of blast radius that people are anticipating, and it doesn't justify the crazy expenditure that's going into AI. The key distinction is that, let's say if you work in a job with a low, limited scope of work, let's say you work at a call center, you either
mm-hmm.
have calls or you don't. If you don't have calls, there is no elective way to do more work. You can't expand your scope. But in most digital jobs where you're a knowledge worker, there is a way to expand your scope. I personally am an employed tech worker in a customer facing role. I can elect to do an infinite number of things for my customers and reporting things internally and all sorts of analysis to show the impact I'm having. But you
Mm-hmm.
can't do that in all jobs. But the number of jobs you can't do that is pretty small. The downside to all of this is that workers are doing more intense work and more strategic work because of AI, but they're exhausted. Boston Consulting Group calls this AI brain fry. It's mental fog, slower decisions, and difficulty focusing. If you think about it, it kind of makes sense because what we're doing is we are offloading a lot of intelligent work to AI, and it should be
Mm-hmm.
the other way around. So I'll give you an example. If you use, let's say you use an AI tool, a chatbot at work, maybe you use Copilot, maybe you use Claude like I do, or
Yeah.
something else. If you
Right.
say, okay, here's a bunch of ideas, here's some notes that I took, turn this into a document. Then the AI is now writing it out in a logical way that other people can digest. And what you're doing is you're taking it, exporting it into Word, formatting it, taking out the M dashes, the dumb work. You're doing the low IQ work, and the AI is doing the high IQ work.
Mhm.
And so you're not actually, you first of all, it's leading to cognitive atrophy for sure. That's what's going to happen.
Oh
But
yeah.
also you can't possibly see better outcomes than if you were the one doing the smart work. And
Right.
so, but that's what's happening because of brain fog. Sorry, brain fry.
Yeah.
Now, I want to talk quickly about professional services, legal accounting, consulting, even investment banking. People think that AI will decimate these jobs. This is overblown, and it's usually talked about by people who aren't lawyers and who aren't large corporations or representing large corporations.
Hmm.
There's a kind of air of Schadenfreude to it because people want to knock lawyers down a peg because they think that they think that lawyers just like price gouge and so. And I mean, $2,000-3,000 an hour is definitely like a
That's a
very
lot of money.
very high margin work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
but I mean, great law firms do really important work and get good outcomes. But the point
Yeah.
is that they're able to charge that because the demand is still there.
Right. We're not
So,
talking about the ambulance chasers and the rent seekers and like the people who are just trying to kind of, I don't know, fuck you over and take your
and
money.
fuck those people because those motherfuckers. I used to have a towing company, and
Hmm.
before I took over the towing company, a driver from the previous owner hit someone, and then that guy got an ambulance chaser lawyer. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have won money or something, but they literally just sue up to your liability maximum. So if you have 500K in liability, they'll be like, "Great, we're suing you for 500K." That's what they do, and
Yeah.
so they will usually win because insurance companies just settle and they raise the price of everyone. But
Yeah.
most legal spending is not in those groups. 75% of legal spending comes from corporations.
Yeah.
And they are not switching to ChatGPT. Law firms are still hiring. They're already using AI for document review anyway, so it's already baked into their current operational models, and it's saving time, but it's not replacing lawyers.
Yeah.
Legal hiring is still projected to grow 4% through 2034, and
Hmm.
overall legal spending is growing 5% a year. It grew from 30 billion in 2025 to 31 billion this year. And it's a
Yeah.
lot of that is driven by like compliance work that exists because of AI disruption. But that's the point. AI will create jobs and work in places that we don't know yet. And that's a good thing. That's an expected outcome.
Yeah.
Even like software engineers, I called them out last week as being the most likely to be displaced by AI. It's already happening.
Hmm.
They have a lot of skills that travel, and that's an important point. Is that just because your job may be eliminated by AI doesn't mean that you won't be able to get another job. Let's talk about software engineers, for example. They have
Yeah.
great technical skills. There are roles that demand technical skills, but not necessarily a ton of coding from the ground up.
Yeah.
Technical program managers matter. Solutions architect, that's a customer facing role where you're expected to be able to write code and advise technical customers on how to build the right solutions, and you need to be technically fluent. Like they hire people with CS degrees to do that stuff.
Yeah.
Or even a startup founder. Startups and entrepreneurship is booming in part because of AI. Nvidia and Amazon hire tons of solutions architects. So there's a lot of roles like that. If Washington Post had a report where they were talking about jobs that were most exposed to AI and most
Exposed as in like they're going to be eliminated or disappear or hiring is going to go down.
exactly. And they also talked about which of those jobs would be the most have the most transferable skills into new roles. And one of the
Hmm.
ones at the top right of this matrix was PR professionals, most exposed, most adaptable. It kind of makes sense. If you think about what they do, they are able to write complex communications, translating corporate agendas into things that different audiences can consume. And
Yeah.
AI maybe can help with a lot of that, but those skills translate a lot into other roles, including what I do, including customer facing work. The World Economic Forum, it projects that 92 million jobs will be displaced by AI by
Hmm.
2030. But they also project that 170 million new jobs will be created. So job eliminated doesn't mean career ended. The skills travel.
Okay. So what's your like takeaway here? Is that it's basically not as bad as many people are, as the doomsayers on the internet are proclaiming?
We're not going to see the benefits of AI by saying, oh, you're 30% more productive, therefore we need 30% fewer of you. And
Yeah.
that's the lazy shortcut that CEOs are trying to force through, but that's not actually what's happening. They're going to see
Yeah.
the value by seeing more production from each individual employee. That does not translate to a lot of job cuts. And the other part is that even the jobs that will be impacted, a lot of them will be able to move to new roles, and there will be a lot of new roles because, as it turns out, overall, it's not like the underlying, if you think about it, the underlying assumption of
Hmm.
AI replacing human productivity, therefore needing less humans, it kind of assumes that there's a finite amount of economic productivity and capacity available. But as it turns out, actually that capacity can expand.
Yeah.
So, if you say this is X amount of economic capacity that we have today,
Yeah.
and AI will take 30% of that, therefore 30% fewer humans, actually that X can expand into Y amount of capacity, which means more humans and more AI. But that's
More
not
of
the stuff
everything for
that gets,
everybody.
and that's not the stuff that gets headlines.
Yeah.
So the other thing I want to talk about is the economics of AI. Does it
Okay.
actually make economic sense to replace people with AI? So here's something that the AI hype machine and all these techno authoritarians and doomsayers are not going to ask themselves about, and they're not going to talk about. The unit economics of actually replacing humans with AI are not great, and nobody's really talking about it. Running an
Hmm.
AI inference costs 100 to 1,000 times more than just loading a web page. It costs infinitely more than doing a search query on Google. The
Yeah.
cost per million input tokens dropped from $20 in 2022 for the flagship model GPT-4 at the time to about
Hmm.
$5 today. So yes, it is cheaper, but the demand has exploded.
Yeah.
And that's called Jevons paradox. Lower cost drives more consumption, not less. So it's
So just
like,
the overall cost is going up because the consumption of a lower cost product has skyrocketed.
I'll give you an analogy.
Yeah.
I buy cold Starbucks coffee for my house. In theory, it saves me money. It costs me $5 or $6. At Starbucks, it would cost me $7 or $8 for a cup. I pay $1.50 a cup at home. But what
Yeah.
happens is that because it's at home, it's more accessible, it's cheaper, I drink more coffee than I would
Yeah.
have drank if I had to go to a Starbucks every time. So it's
Right.
the cost, also accessibility, and both of those things are direct analogies to what we're seeing in AI. This is all based on today's AI. So a million tokens is not really that much. First of all, output tokens cost way more than input tokens, right? So
Yeah.
if you're running AI agents, they are going to produce a lot of reasoning, longer context windows, a lot more output tokens. To give you a sense, it's like 3 times as expensive for a
Hmm.
flagship model. So Claude 4.6 Opus, the cost for a million input tokens is $5, cost per million output tokens is $15. Okay,
Yeah.
that's kind of consistent, except for Grok, which price is like hilariously low because apparently they don't have any pricing power because nobody fucking wants to use Grok because they make like child porn and stuff.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, it was such a just kind of an aside, but like, what a failure! What a ridiculous failure by Grok that when Anthropic, told the Pentagon that they weren't going to fulfill the demands of that contract, that they weren't going to allow AI to autonomously make decisions to kill people, that space could have been taken up by either Grok or OpenAI, probably one of the two. You'd think
Yeah.
Grok would have the better chance, right? Considering how much ass kissing Elon Musk does, you would think that Grok would have been a no-brainer. By the way, not to mention it costs a lot less, like I just mentioned, and they still didn't do it. It went to OpenAI. That's
Went to
such a
OpenAI. Also, X, or formerly Twitter's offices in France, got raided by the authorities because they let people use their image generation engine to create child sexual abuse imagery unchecked. So French authorities were like, fuck that, we are coming in, and they
yeah.
just raided
Well,
their offices. So
that's what should fucking happen. To be honest with you,
should be
I
happening
mean,
here too, by the way. But yeah,
but honestly, by most LLM tests, I'm not 100% sure how they test it, but in terms of reasoning, Grok's actually a pretty good model. But if you
yeah,
if you make it the child porn model, nobody's going to want to fucking use it.
no,
So,
obvious.
but anyways, to reach its theoretical potential, where AI is so intelligent and so productive and does stuff so fast that it
Hmm.
can actually replace workers at scale, models need longer context windows, which means more token. They need more reasoning, which means more output tokens. And autonomous agents generate a ton of this because that's how they operate. They operate in loops: prompt, response, prompt, response, prompt, response. And granted, there are ways to reduce the amount of tokens generated. and let's say you are using a chatbot, AI chatbot right now,
Yeah.
you could have pre-designated prompts in the chatbot. So like, what's the weather today? And the idea is that if a million people have already asked that question, the tokens have already been generated for that. So you're not regenerating for them. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, there's no way around it. More work, more productivity means more tokens, which means more cost. And even
Okay.
if the cost per token goes down, which it probably will, there will still, Jevons paradox kicks in and there will be more tokens used. It's not that hard to see a single AI agent pass $100 per day in cost. A single Excel file can easily blow past 1 million tokens. And that's just like one, I don't know, 20,000 cell Excel file. That's not even that big of an Excel file. So now
Yeah.
if you have 4 or 5 agents doing your job, that's $500 a day. That's definitely more or close to what a human would cost depending on the role is. That's like more than $160,000 a year or close to that. Then there's the infrastructure problem. Nobody wants data centers because why would they? They create a wasteland and they create no jobs and they drive up energy costs. They are destroying towns and they're getting permits denied all over the place because duh. Like, why would you want that? I wouldn't even want to live near a data center. I would immediately pack up and move.
They
Uh,
don't create jobs?
no, because well, they create jobs for the construction of the data center. Like you need people
Mhm.
to, but the actual people who are running them day to day is very few people. You need
Yeah.
like a couple of like DC ops people, data center operations to make sure the cabling works and the internet works and shit like that. And that's pretty much it. Maybe someone to like replace some of the racks and the chips and stuff like that with new chips. It's really not that many people considering the cost that they have and how much is demanded from the societies that they exist in.
Okay.
And that's just talking about, can we even make enough data centers to power what AI demands to be enough to replace humans? I'm not even talking about yet, which I now am going to talk about,
Uh-huh.
the costs of running data centers. You need to replace chips every 3 to 5 years, especially when they're training new models, because that's when they wear out the fastest, because they're doing the most amount of computations when they're training new models.
Yeah.
And new models is how you get intelligent AI that can make better decisions and better predictions. Even
Right.
if those chips didn't wear out, they will be obsolete from newer hardware. And again, you need newer hardware because you can't achieve what AI expects to achieve without the newest, best hardware. Those are expensive.
Yeah.
A flagship NVIDIA model would cost 50K. 50K for just one.
Yeah.
For just
And
one.
you
You need
need
hundreds.
thousands of them.
Yes, you need
Yeah.
thousands of them, and they're not actually all that available right now. I mean, look,
No.
NVIDIA's revenue is through the roof. It's crazy. And there's so much demand for this. And yeah, the cost will go down, but it's
Yeah.
never going to be zero. So you can run an inference for basic LLMs on older chips, sure. And some data centers are doing that to cut costs, but that's not where the returns are. That's not going to get you to a place where you say, great, there's $2 trillion in AI spending this year, $2
Yeah.
trillion, and we're going to get enough returns by running older chips just to run basic inferences in chatbots for like 60-year-old grandmas. Like, no, that's not going to happen. If the money is going to come from corporations adopting it at scale, paying for flagship models to make the best decisions that they can and process work faster. That only comes from the newest technology. And by the way, is there enough resources with the data center limitation to actually do it? So there will always be a price floor. It's not like software. Like theoretically, if I owned Slack or Riverside, where we're hosting this right now,
Yeah.
if I built it and it's a good product, there is no really incremental cost to me to deliver it to a new customer. I could deliver it to 100 people, and the only costs are just computing costs, which is minimal.
Yeah.
So I can really like charge almost nothing. Like if I charge like $2 a month, I'm not saying it would be a great business, but you'd probably be more than break even if I charge $2 a month for Riverside or Slack. That's not going to be the case with AI. It will never be the case. Bain put out a report saying that AI needs $2 trillion in new revenue just to fund its current scaling trajectory.
In
And
terms
that
of building out data centers and whatnot.
exactly. There's a collision coming between the path to AGI, artificial general intelligence, and whether it makes any financial sense to actually get there. The
Yeah.
people building it are kind of hoping that we don't do the math, but the market already is. Hence the prices, stock prices of the hyperscalers, Meta, Google, Amazon, Microsoft.
Are they going down or?
Oh, yeah. They all
Yeah.
went down since the beginning of the year because they all announced that they're spending hundreds of billions of dollars in AI related capex, and the market's just not convinced that the returns will be there.
Yeah.
The markets are very honest. Like, the markets do not bullshit. They don't have narratives to push. They're not social media. I mean,
Hmm.
granted, like, there are exceptions. I mean, just
Yeah.
Tesla stock alone, and we're going to talk about SpaceX IPO later. Like, these things are absurd. But generally speaking, the markets are pretty honest about stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So you said there's a collision coming. So basically, eventually, there's going to be. I'm trying to summarize this for my own sake here, but
In order to reach AGI, or enough intelligence that AI can replace human workers at scale, there
yeah.
needs to be so many extra costs, both from operating costs, variable costs, that you really have to ask, is it actually worth it?
Like the cost of making that happen is more than what the return could be possibly.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think will come, and I think that makes sense for us to land there. I think there's just people and companies who profit handsomely off of the doomsayer perspective. But that does not seem to be happening. In fact, there is no sign, except for a handful of tech companies that were already struggling in their own ways. And I'm including Meta, who's announced that they're laying off, or I don't know if they announced it, but it was reported that they're laying off 20% of people this week. They have fundamental problems. And we're going to talk about that and how they're shutting down the metaverse basically after spending $80 billion on it. But now they're
Yeah.
spending $115 billion on AI capex because they're losing the AI race. They all have
Yeah.
ulterior motives, and AI is the convenient one. But let's also remember that we are in a shitty economy. If we weren't in a shitty economy, there would be more hiring. So it's assumed that the correlation is between AI and the poor job market, but actually those things are not cause and effect related. It's really just a bad economy that's leading to zero hiring. Our interest rates are really high. The Fed said that they're not going to lower interest rates. Why? Because inflation is too high. Inflation, if you lower interest rates, inflation will accelerate. So high interest means there's less loans that businesses can take out, which means they hire less people, they do less innovation. That's the real problem here. But in terms of AI, we're going to end up in a space where there's more economic capacity and there's room for both humans and AI, and
Yeah.
we will not see a massive cuts to jobs. The only reason we're seeing that now in any way is because those companies suck, they have issues, and the job market and the economy is in a shitty place.
So what is it that all the doomsayers and tech oligarchs that you were talking about, what's the worst case scenario that they're talking about?
They're basically saying you might as well just not even like bother learning anything. Don't go to college. Just learn how to be a subservient to AI. I mean, that's
Okay.
like, I hope I'm not misattributing this, but I'm pretty sure Alex Karp, CEO of Palantir, said
Palantir,
this.
yeah.
And he's one of those fucking weird ass techno authoritarians. And the thing is, like
Yeah.
I think I said this last week, but like, I don't fucking care if you have a weird opinion on something. Like, I don't care about people from the Whitesboro Baptist Church. They can think what they want, but they are not the ones dictating policy because there is no policy. So the policy is whatever they want it to be. They're not the
Yeah.
ones dictating policy on technology that will disrupt our lives. And if they had it their way and they have a lot of power and influence, we would be completely removed from the equation. There'd be no humans to do anything. We literally just defer to technology in every situation. So fuck them.
All right, Mike, I want to shift gears a little bit here, but I also just want to talk about a real quick AI thing that I saw in the news. It's about a man from North Carolina named Michael Smith, which is like the most generic name ever, but he is on trial for an $8 million fraud case. So since 2017, he had been using AI bots and like computer generated music to just generate hundreds of thousands of fake songs, and then quietly uploading them to all sorts of music streaming platforms like Spotify and YouTube Music. And then he was using AI bots to generate billions of fake listeners or streams of those songs that he had generated and uploaded. And so he just, over multiple years, since 2017, generated $8 million in revenue for himself by creating AI generated music, uploading them, and then using AI bots to stream the music that he created, generating like quiet passive revenue. He got found out in 2023, and now he's on trial, and he basically like pleaded guilty and said, yes, I did it. I think you're going to see more and more of that type of thing where people are basically trying to use these tools to game the system and uh make some
Yeah.
money and then quietly disappear.
100%. I mean, look, just think about like spam calls and robocalls that are like phishing attempts. One of the easiest ways to tell that you're being phished or scammed is like
Mm-hmm.
bad English, right? Like,
Yeah.
well, with AI, that's not a problem anymore, right? Like AI puts out perfect
No.
English. I mean, it's very like AI indicative. You can tell that it's derived from AI, but that's not necessarily going to make you immediately realize that you're being scammed.
No. And actually, this is just coming to mind quick now. It's not even in my notes, but it's something I read about maybe a year ago or 2 years ago. A woman in Arizona was on the news over there in Phoenix because she got a phone call with a random man telling her that he had kidnapped her daughter, and he put the daughter on the phone, and it's this lady's daughter saying, mom, please help me. They're, just asking for like $10,000. So they're going to hurt me. You've got to pay them. Otherwise, I don't know what's going to happen. And this woman panics and freaks out because if it's your child, you're going to, do anything you can to save them. And, it was her daughter on the phone. It was her voice. And she had like a brief moment of clarity, and she called her husband and said like, hey, somebody just called me. They said they have our daughter. What are we going to do? And he's like, hey, I'm with our daughter at soccer practice right now. I'm literally looking at her. Like, she's safe. She's fine. Nobody's got her. And these people who called a lady, they had taken this girl's publicly available social media reels, used her voice to create like a fake scenario where it was her voice, but sounding panicked and scared, to try to trick this lady into paying a ransom. And do you think that technology has gotten worse or just been stagnant since 2 years ago? No, it's getting better all the time. And so you're just going to get way, way more of those types of instances where people are just, trying to trick people out of their money.
And you could even see it getting to the point where it's like, okay, hey, you know what? I've heard about these types of scams. I want to see my daughter. Like show me her on like a live video or something. And then like you could probably just have a very sophisticated AI bot that can replicate her likeness, her mannerisms and stuff. And if it gets good enough, probably convince someone. There's not a whole lot of ways to stop that kind of stuff. I like to see that the model producers exercise some kind of discretion over it. For example, cybersecurity is another issue around AI because they're very good at identifying hackable loopholes in software and things like that, and that could lead to data breaches and other stuff. Stolen identities, like Anthropic will work with large software providers before they release a new model to identify those loopholes early. So that way, before they release it to the world, those have already been closed so the hackers can't exploit them. So, but I don't know how you would do that in a situation you described, but yeah, it's fucking scary. And you really have to just be on your toes and be skeptical of everything that relies on technology.
Yeah, like me and my family, we've already identified a code word that we're going to use if we're ever in a situation similar to what I just described that only we know. And if somebody calls and says like, hey, I kidnapped your wife, I'm like, all right, put her on the phone and ask her for the code word. And if nobody knows it, then they can kick rocks.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's like the little totem in Inception. He's got the little spinning top or the loaded die, and he knows which way it's going to land.
Listen, that's such a great movie, but I'm pretty sure that came out 20 years ago. You're going to need to update your references for our younger audience.
16 years ago. Still a great movie.
16? Okay.
2010.
Okay.
Inception,
right.
2010, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
all right. All right, so now we're going to talk about 2 feel-good stories, because a lot of times we're only talking about bad stuff. We're going to do 2 feel-good stories, and then we'll get into the biggest L's. So sorry, we are going to end on the biggest L's. And we're going to start with the Afroman case where, well, Martin, do you want to tell us what it's about?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you don't know who Afroman is, just go on Spotify or YouTube or any music streaming service and just look up either Crazy Rap or Because I Got High, because those songs were classics 25 years ago. And he's a very funny musical entertainer from Ohio. But it starts in August of 2022 when deputies from the Adams County Sheriff's Office, they raided Afroman's home. They had a search warrant that targeted him based on allegations that he had engaged in drug trafficking and kidnapping. And so they went to his house, they broke through his front gate and smashed down his front door and raided his home when he wasn't home. So they raided his house when he wasn't home. They caused a lot of property damage, and they didn't find any drugs or any evidence that he had engaged in kidnapping, and no criminal charges whatsoever were filed against him.
And they stole $400 supposedly, according to him.
Allegedly. That part hasn't been proven, but that's something that he brought up. He said, I had $5,000 in cash sitting in the pocket of one of my suits, and when my property was returned to me after the raid, there was only $4,600 in the cash.
Showed a picture of, like, a grainy picture of it. But anyway, continue. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. So the important part here is that no criminal charges were filed against him. Afroman, his real name is Joseph Foreman. Afroman, get it? Well, in any case, so no criminal charges, and he accused the deputies of vandalism and theft, the missing $400. And those claims were not really the main focus of the civil litigation, because he, being the comedic entertainer that he is, he took all the security footage from his own home and turned it into a series of music videos and released a whole album where he's basically just shit talking the Adams County Sheriff's Department, all the deputies and the people who raided his home and caused all this property damage.
By name, by the way, like by name. Like, yes. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
So he's calling people out by name. He made multiple songs. And so, security cameras over his property captured the entire raid. And one really funny detail is that as the deputies are moving through his house, a security camera in his kitchen captured an older, overweight deputy from the sheriff's department with his gun out. He's got the tactical bulletproof vest, and he's walking past the kitchen counter. And on the kitchen counter, under a little glass dome, there's like remnants of a lemon pound cake sitting there. And this old fat guy is walking by. He's conducting this serious drug raid, or raid on a house of somebody they suspect is engaged in illegal drug activity and kidnapping. And you see him just kind of cast an eye down on this cake. And he's like, God damn, I want a piece of that cake. Which is, I don't know. It's just such a perfect moment of comedy. But in any case, so Afroman doing what he does, he takes all of this and just turns it into a full album of songs, shit talking deputies and the sheriff's office by name, calling people out directly. He made all these viral music videos. The most famous one was called Lemon Pound Cake, that came out at the end of 2022. And he just racked up millions of views from all of this. And another track that he put out is called Will You Help Me Repair My Door? The music video to which is just captures the moment where they bust down his front door, kick it in, it blows it off the hinges. And so he said that all of this was done under the protection of the First Amendment and as protected artistic expression, and as a way to kind of make some money to recoup the repair costs. The deputies, who really didn't like being made fun of, they filed a civil lawsuit in March of 2023, so 3 years ago. So 7 members of the Adams County Sheriff's Office, 4 deputies, 2 sergeants, and 1 detective, filed a civil lawsuit against Afroman. And they claimed that they had been defamed, that he had invaded their privacy, that he had intentionally inflicted emotional distress on them, and also used their likeness for profit without authorization or permission. So they, in their suit, alleged that the videos and his social media posts about him caused severe humiliation, ridicule, mental distress, embarrassment, loss of reputation, and that it even put them in danger because they were citing anonymous death threats and public harassment on social media, through the internet, after his videos went viral. So they asked for $3.9 million in damages. And this is the best part.
Okay.
So if you don't know Afroman, I think he's in his 50s at this point. He's a middle-aged black guy. And he does have, true to his name, a huge afro. Yeah. But he shows up to court, in the courtroom, with sunglasses on that have the American flag on them and a red, white, and blue American flag suit. So he just looks like a cartoon character, like something that like a Japanese anime show like would like show like a stereotypical American
like
as
a caricature, yeah,
a total character.
yeah.
So the trial, the civil jury trial, took place this month, and it just concluded a couple of days ago. So it took place in Adams County Common Pleas Court in mid-March. And he shows up testifying in this like red, white, and blue American flag suit with the American flag sunglasses and the giant afro. And he just kind of decimates their entire case because he made his point, like, if they hadn't raided my home on false charges or like false premises, none of this would have happened. I wouldn't have made any videos to make fun of them. I wouldn't have used surveillance footage from my own home security system to make fun of these people. And I have a First Amendment right and protections to make fun of public officials. If you're a public official, you work for a sheriff's office, you have to be able to handle more ridicule, criticism, and resistance than you do if you're just a private person.
And I'm pretty sure his lawyer made that in his closing argument, saying that there's no reasonable expectation by the public that a police officer wouldn't be a potential target for being made fun of. It happens all the time.
Exactly. So that's just part of the job. If you work for the sheriff's office, you're under the spotlight in a way that a private person isn't. And so you just kind of have to put up with it.
Can I just read a couple of the funniest lyrics from some of the songs he put out? So,
please do, because this shit is gold.
Will you help me repair my door? That song. So any kidnapping victims inside my suit pockets, you crooked cops need to stop it. There are no kidnapping victims in my suit pockets. and then from Lemon Pound Cake, it's, they found no kidnapping victims, just some lemon pound cake. Mama's lemon pound cake. It tastes so nice. It made the sheriff want to put down his gun and cut him a slice.
And the music video features footage from one of his concerts where he's just like jiving on stage, having a good time and singing this song. And the crowd is just like all white teenagers and 20 somethings with their phones out recording and just like totally in on it. It's the best.
Yeah.
And so during the court, one of the deputies, a lady, is sitting there crying while they play one of the songs in court where he's basically accusing her of like having slept around the department, cheating on her husband. This shit is so fucking good because there's footage from the courtroom where Afroman is sitting with his giant afro, sunglasses, and American flag suit, and he's leaned back like this, just listening to the song, while this lady is on the witness stand, bawling her eyes out, being humiliated by this music, and she can't do anything about it. It's just like a perfect like comedy moment because the juxtaposition, the contrast between this woman who tried to sue him for millions of dollars and him like sitting there, I would imagine pretty confident that he has this case in the bag, like he's going to win.
Well, not just that, but her acting like a victim when clearly he's the
clearly
victim.
Not the case. Yeah, clearly not the case.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah, and then another moment in the case that was that Afroman's lawyer had to, or asked one of the plaintiffs if he could be sure or not if Afroman had slept with his wife, which is one of the things that he mentioned in one of his songs, that Afroman has slept with this deputy's wife. And the gold here is that he can't answer in the affirmative or the negative, really. If he says yes, then he's basically admitting to being cucked and that his wife is cheating on him in public court. If he says no, then he kind of has to prove it. And he also has to say that, I'm suing this guy over a claim I know to be false by admitting it. So his really only available response there was, I don't know if Afroman fucked my wife or not. Which is like such a jackpot like moment for the defense. I just love it.
I love it. Yeah. No, this is a great story. It's great to see reasonable things prevailing for once in a while.
Yes, but the reason I love it is because I'm such a big like free speech advocate and supporter, but I also love this type of comedy and somebody like getting away with just ruthlessly mocking agents of the state who then tried to play victim, going to court, losing to a guy who looks like a caricature sitting, on trial, and just being confident that he's going to win. And he did win. The jury ruled totally in his favor on all counts. No plaintiff verdict prevailed across 13 total counts. And the deputies just received absolutely nothing. But afterwards, he filmed himself outside of the courthouse, just screaming, "We did it, America! Yeah, we did it! Freedom of speech! Right on, right on!" And he was framing this whole thing as a victory for satire and free expression and the right to criticize and mock public officials. And people see it as like a landmark affirmation of First Amendment rights to satirize the cops and make fun of people who raid your home for no good reason. So I love this story. I love that he won. I love that he made fun of the cops and in a way that was like very clearly protected by First Amendment free speech rights.
There's nothing like seeing a self-victimizer get told that nobody has pity for you. So yeah.
Yes, exactly that. I love the way you put it. It's perfect. So, by the way, that was my feel-good story for the week. And Mike, I know you have one, but I have no clue what it is.
So this story is about Krafton, which is a South Korean game maker, game production company. Their popular games are PUBG, Battlegrounds. They acquired a game maker called Unknown Worlds, which makes a popular game called Subnautica. And basically, the structure of this deal was that there would be a $500 million payment up front with a $250 million earnout. An earnout is basically when you have to meet certain sales goals, and then more money is paid out to you over time based on hitting those targets.
Okay.
So what happened was that they tried to back out of paying this $250 million, and a Delaware court just eviscerated them. So
who tried backing out?
Krafton tried to.
You better pronounce this right.
The Krafton CEO Changan Kim. Basically, this reads like a business school case study of like what not to do, but also like kind of by a comedy writer. So basically he was afraid that, I guess, he agreed to a bad contract where maybe he was overpaying. And so he bypassed his own legal team and opened ChatGPT, and the chatbot told him that the earnout would be difficult to cancel because he wanted to cancel it. He didn't accept the answer. And so he worked.
So the $250 million extra payout. Okay.
So then he worked with ChatGPT on a multi-stage corporate takeover strategy called Project X. This is outside of what his own legal team even knows about, okay? ChatGPT advised him on forming a task force, seizing control of Steam, which is a game distributor, right, through the internet and through the Steam engine.
Yeah.
And seizing control of Steam to block the game Subnautica's launch, firing the founders with the made-up reason that they wanted to release the game too early, and it even wrote public-facing fan messaging that they could use to to assuage fans. So,
like astroturfing public support for this plan.
Yes, exactly.
Oh God.
So the CEO,
there's no way this could go wrong. No way.
The CEO followed ChatGPT's plans. And by the way, to ChatGPT's credit, it told him it would be difficult to cancel. And then the judge basically just laughed the arguments out of court and said that none of their proffered justifications have merit. And by the way, as part of this, he fired the CEO and the other founders of Unknown Worlds, which he didn't have the right to do. The CEO got reinstated with the right to bring in the other founders. Subnautica 2 is back on track for May early release. Basically, there's going to be another round of litigation where Krafton it's determined how much they actually owe these people. So the cherry on top is that
to be more.
Yeah. The cherry on top is that they declare themselves an AI first company to deliver differentiated user experiences and drive innovation.
The fuck does that mean?
It means that you maybe were too AI first in this situation.
Because he was using AI to try to back out of that earn-on clause.
It's funny that an AI first company would over rely on ChatGPT for legal work, especially as a way to screw someone out of money and then get egg in their face. So this was
a South Korean company trying to buy an American game studio. That's why it was in Delaware court.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so they just fucked themselves because the Krafton CEO was like, I'm going to use a commercial chatbot to create a strategy to avoid paying $250 million over time.
Yeah. And I mean, such an embarrassment. You just lose all respect for that studio. I mean, and basically this sounds like an L, and it is an L, but it's also a feel good moment because the other side of this, the feel good element is that it makes me feel good to know that AI legal advice failed.
Yes.
especially in the context of screwing someone out of rightfully earned money.
Well said.
Okay, now that we got the feel good stuff out of the way, let's get into the L's of the week. We have a lot on the table here. Martin, you want to
Mm.
kick us off?
Yes, absolutely. So this is regarding Kash Patel, director of the FBI, and his very cool and badass sneakers. Mike, look in our show notes and describe the pictures that I put in there.
Um, atrocious, egregious, hilarious. Oh, wow. What is this?
Yeah, give some detail here, especially the back of
Okay,
the shoe,
so
the
so
heel.
so there's these. I want to say like they look like cheap knockoffs of like Nike Air Jordan, the retro style shoes, but
Hmm.
like they do have a Nike logo on them with yellow. There's some kind of logo on the tongue that says like I don't know what, like a dollar sign. Is that a dollar sign?
That
Ew.
is Kash Patel's own logo for himself because everything has to be a brand these days. So,
Is his logo based like as a like a play on his name, Cash, and it's like a
yes,
dollar sign?
yes.
Get the
So,
fuck out of here. And then the back of
yeah.
it, just because you asked me for that, there's a
Hmm.
yellow skull, like making a mean mug face.
It's the
Okay.
Punisher skull.
Oh, okay. The Punisher skull. I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
Okay. So from the
yeah.
Punisher from the
Marvel
Marvel
Comics.
comics, right?
Yeah.
And then there's like this ugly ass like ribbon that nobody's used since like 2003 saying fidelity, bravery, and some other word that I can't see.
Integrity.
Okay, just like these are
Yeah.
just like vacuous words that mean nothing to this person. Anyway, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
I want to keep
especially
looking at this before I gag. My gag reflexes are kicking in.
all right. So yeah, FBI Director Kash Patel, he was attending a FBI Academy event that were doing martial arts training with UFC fighters, which is super cool and badass and exactly what any 13-year-old would want. And he was photographed wearing these customized Nike sneakers. And they have his personal logo, K dollar sign H. So Cash, a number 9 for him being the ninth director of the FBI on the side, and the Cash logo is on the tongue of the sneaker. And on the back of the heel, there's a ribbon or like a banner, and it says fidelity, bravery, and integrity, which is very funny because he has none of those things. And a Punisher skull, which is from the Marvel comic and TV show about a brutally violent vigilante who kills people outside of the justice system, people that he just deemed guilty outside of the bounds of law and the courts, which to me is very fitting for a man who's directing, our federal police. So this also just reminded me of Kash Patel, who I consider a paragon of fidelity, who bravely flew to Italy to chug beers with the U.S. men's hockey team. He also flew on an FBI private jet to Utah to be on the ground for the investigation of the Charlie Kirk assassination, but he refused to leave the private jet until he had the correct badass tactical jacket with the FBI patches on the shoulders. And so another agent had to rip off of his and give them to Kash Patel, who, by the way, was wearing a women's medium. So that's one of the big L's of the week for me.
They just like exemplify loser behavior. Like
Oh, yeah.
it's like you know what it is. You know what the part is. I think that's grotesque. It's the
Hmm.
complete lack of self awareness.
Yeah.
Just like and so many different levels here. One, that's an ugly fucking logo. Two, any logo that's based around your supposed being special or whatever achievement you think you've had in life is grotesque.
Mm.
And then there's like the showing up to the MMA event and trying to like insert yourself into these realms like you're like an uber man. It just comes off as like so
The
lack of
biggest
self.
dork in high school.
Yeah, like what it the
Yeah.
like nobody and I'm telling you, nobody respects that. Not even the people in the Trump world respect that. They have to be like, dude, you're making us look bad. Like stop trying to overcompensate for your own insecurities and
Yeah.
just be fucking normal, dude. And they don't get it because they actually, I think, either they're just so insecure that
Yeah.
they think that this level of overcompensation actually
Is
conceals
cool.
that rather than
Yeah.
amplifies that, or they
Mm.
actually just don't really understand how
Yeah.
it looks to everyone. Like he needs to fire. You must have a team of people around just being like, yes, people, like, yes, that's amazing. Oh my God, Cash,
Hmm.
Mr.
Yeah.
Patel, Director Patel, that is the most beautiful logo I've ever seen. And
Your
aligning
shoes are so
yourself
cool and badass.
and oh my God, like aligning yourself with the Punisher, that's
Mm.
so apt and so in for an FBI director. Like,
Yeah. A
get rid of these
violent
people.
vigilante who just extrajudiciously murders people. That's what you want the associated with the director of the FBI. But I just before we move on to the next L of the week, I have to ask you, Mike, because you've run companies before, you've hired people. When you owned a tow truck company, would you have hired a tow truck driver who showed up with Kash Patel's energy and customized sneakers and like just general vibe?
I mean, yeah, but like I was paying 15 to 20 bucks an hour. So I'll just we don't really have a lot of pickings when that's what you're paying. You know what I
But
mean?
so here's my point. If you would have hired somebody like that to do that job, would you have thought to yourself, this man should be director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation?
No, I would be thinking to myself, please, please, dear God, don't embarrass us in front of customers. please, please don't like, I don't know, pick your ass in front of customers or like pick your nose.
Or
Please
say
don't.
something like
Yeah.
grotesquely
Yeah.
sexist
Yeah.
or talk about like killing people outside of the bounds of the law.
Yeah. Don't talk about immigrants. Don't talk about, your politics. Just please, dear God, keep your fucking mouth shut. That's what I'd be thinking.
Yeah, drive
But
the truck and shut up.
I would pretty much be expecting there to be like a train wreck at some points. I want to talk about Live Nation. Live Nation, the company everybody hates that merged with Ticketmaster and owns Ticketmaster and basically has a monopoly on concerts and venues. They have actually been facing a rare and DOJ brought antitrust lawsuit, which, by
Yeah.
the way, the DOJ chickened out of for some reason. We don't know why, and settled with them for a pittance, about $280 million or something, which is nothing compared to the damage they caused. 27 or 28 states attorneys generals were like, we are not on board with that. They're going to pursue their own legal action, even though the
Against, yeah.
DOJ kind of blindsided them. But here's the L. I'll give you what happened in the last week. So
Yeah.
there were in this trial, there were Slack messages that came out
During
from the
discovery.
exactly. And basically, two regional directors, Ben Baker and Jeff Weinhold, showed some salacious messages where they bragged about jacking up prices for things like parking, VIP passes, and lawn chair rentals. Remember, this is an antitrust lawsuit.
Yeah.
Okay, anti-monopoly, and here they are bragging about jacking up prices. So
Yeah.
here's some things that they said.
These
Weinhold said,
motherfuckers.
oh, yeah. Weinhold said VIP parking up to $250, LOL. And then Baker said, these people are so stupid. I almost feel bad taking advantage of that. And then Baker also said, robbing them blind, baby. That's how we do. I gouge them on ancillary prices, which is the ancillary products and services. First of all, don't ever say anything like this in Slack ever, because they don't, and for that matter, don't ever text or email anything like this either, because if you're ever sued for something and it comes out, you're going to look like an asshole, even if you win whatever you're being sued for. Okay.
If you have to say these types of things, go into the woods, leave all electronic devices behind, and whisper it under a giant oak tree with nobody else around. Like, I mean, just don't put it in any electronic form whatsoever.
Carve it into the tree or something. And even
yeah,
that,
you
maybe, I don't
fucking
know.
morons.
Like, and the thing is, like, in antitrust, the argument is, would you have been able to justify those prices if there was fair competition? Well, the answer is obviously no, because if there was fair competition, I would say, if I was your competitor, oh, cool, you're charging $250 for parking, I'm going to charge $200 and I'll still make a lot of money. And then you would say, well, I'm going to charge $150. And then it would go down to whatever the most reasonable rate is, right? What would be illegal is if we colluded, which would be a cartel, and come up with like a price that we both have. But anyway, the fair market, this doesn't happen. The crux of this lawsuit is that the merger between Ticketmaster and Live Nation in 2010 not only gave them unfair market share in ticketing and venues and events, but they actually own the venues and the amphitheaters, and they demand exclusivity over ticket management, which allows them to charge fees that are, again, simply not in line with what a fair market would justify. And we all fucking know this. Because they charge fees like, what is it, 15, 20% on top of your tickets, not to mention all the other shit I mentioned. And they even retaliated against venues and artists that didn't use Ticketmaster by refusing to allow artists to use their venues. And by the way, own like 400 something, I think 265 venues across the country. So they refused to let, so they were basically refusing to let artists use their venues if they use other promoters. And they would also try to retaliate against venues, say, well, we're not going to book artists at your venue. So it's basically this complete control of the entire supply chain. According to the Massachusetts AG, they also manage 400 artists. They control 80% of primary ticket venues for concerts. So The Verge obtained an audio from 2021 with the Live Nation CEO, Michael Rapino, and then CEO of the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, John Abamondi, and arguing over ticketing contract terms and when their contract with Ticketmaster ended.
Hmm.
Rapino was being super rude, basically saying that, well, you can't count 2020 as a year for this contract because it was COVID or whatever. We weren't doing live events. So,
Yeah.
you need to like extend the length of this contract and not go to SeatGeek, which is a ticketing competitor.
Yeah.
And Abamondi was like, yeah, like that's just not what's in the contract. I don't know what you're talking about. It says it ends at this date. That's what we're going to do. And then Rapino was pretty rude, and he basically said it would be tough to deliver concerts to them with a new competitor in town, which Abamondi took that as a threat. And he was likely referring to the new UBS Center in Queens, which is where the New York Islanders now play. They used to play in Long Island, but it was the shittiest stadium arena you've ever seen in your life for like a professional hockey team.
In Long
Uh,
Island? No way.
it looked like a high school gym. I'm not even kidding. So to sum it all up, they own the money spigot that artists need to earn money from concerts, and they control access to ticket distribution that fans need to see those concerts. Classic
Yeah.
monopolistic behavior, and that's why you pay 20% fees to see Taylor Swift. The Justice Department almost got some tepid applause from me because I was like, wow, an actual antitrust suit against a big company. But then they reached a $280 settlement, and then, like I
$200
said,
million sub.
$280 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then a bunch of states, like I said, 27 state AGs were like, no, we're not accepting that. That's bullshit. And Live
Hmm.
Nation's communication team just sounds like a bunch of jackasses. And all this, like, whenever you see that, where like the PR team sounds like a bunch of assholes, it all comes from the CEO. They're basically like branches of the CEO's like dirty, ugly, diseased tree.
Yeah.
Because
Marionettes. Yeah.
they blamed the Biden administration for letting antitrust be run by populist urges and said this isn't antitrust, just anti-business. Um, Please fire that PR team because they're making your company look like a pathetic self-victimizer, and you look like a fucking asshole.
Oh my God. I would like to rant for just a couple of more minutes about how
Yeah,
much I fucking
let's
hate
talk
Ticketmaster.
about it. Let it all out.
I love going to comedy shows and a few concerts here and there. And, oftentimes Ticketmaster is really your only option. And so if I buy a seat in the nosebleeds because it cost me $50, or if I want to buy a seat in the front row, which cost $150, the electronic transactions that happens in my phone or web browser when I purchase that ticket is the same. It's not like it costs them more to sell me the $150 front row ticket versus the $50 nosebleed. But because that ticket is more in the front row, they charge a higher premium or like higher convenience fee or whatever the fuck they call it. And so because the ticket is more, they're going to charge more, even though the work of delivering that ticket to me electronically is exactly the fucking same.
That's true. But in addition to that, I also want to add that because they are demanding that they have exclusive rights over all
Mm-hmm.
tickets, the
Yeah.
actual prices are higher. What if
Yeah.
it was given to multiple exchanges? Then you would actually see market dynamics. But if they take all the Taylor Swift tickets, then they say,
Mm-hmm.
you know what? The minimum price is I don't know, $300. That's the minimum. We will
Yeah.
never charge more than that. And by the way, you're not allowed to sell this ticket you're not allowed to like print it. You're not allowed to sell it to any other exchange. It must stay here because all of those things would create a secondary market where maybe the market doesn't want to pay $300. Maybe the market, I'm Taylor Swift's probably an exception, but maybe the market price for that shitty seat would be $160 or something, but you'll
Yeah.
never know because Ticketmaster doesn't allow that. So that's also where you're getting screwed. So yeah, I guess it's kind of a W, right? But it's also just I don't know. It's an L and a W in some ways.
Yeah. I just
But they
hope that
haven't lost anything yet, so that's why. Yeah.
I just hope that the attorneys general in all the different states just continue this case and just get them because they fucking deserve it so badly.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Mike, I know for your next L, you wanted to talk about the death of the metaverse and how sad it's made you.
So Meta has effectively killed the metaverse by shutting down Horizon Worlds on Meta Quest by June 15th. I'm not going to shit all over Meta for taking a stab at this, but I do think that they really should have made this decision a lot sooner. Like they created this Reality Labs division, which was in part supposed to create business B2B experiences using VR and AR. And like that's already been proven to not have a use case. There was this company called Magic Leap a few years ago. I think they're dead now, but like it was like the biggest, most Silicon Valley bust ever because Magic Leap was like a stealth startup, but like we knew they were getting a ton of funding from prominent VCs and that we didn't know what product they were making. We were all excited. When Magic Leap came out, it was just
Wow.
like a shitty, overpriced AR headset. Nobody wanted this thing, and they were trying to sell it to businesses. Meta tried to do the same thing rather than just admitting that it was never going to work. So, that being said, I'm not going to shit all over Meta for taking a stab at this, because there was a real possibility back in 2021 or whatever it was that the metaverse may become the next widely adopted sort of frontier, widely used platform, and maybe change how we socialize and do everything. Like, there was a time when we didn't really know when or if we were ever going to get back to in-person experiences. And part of being one of the few most profitable companies in the world, Meta generally has about 75 to 80 billion dollars of free cash flow, which is a shitload.
Yeah.
Is that you can take crazy bets and be wrong, and nobody will really care, because investors only look at forward-looking revenue to evaluate your company.
Yeah.
But my main critique is that they didn't just take a stab. It's like they bought a knife factory and they just shot them all out of a cannon. $80 billion was spent on this shit. With $80 billion, they could have, so right now, Meta is losing the AI race. They could have bought Perplexity, which is a very popular AI app and search browser tool funded
Yeah.
by, partially funded by Jeff Bezos, was valued at $20 billion in September. Cursor,
Mm.
the AI-powered code editor, was last valued at $29 billion.
Yeah.
Nebius AI, which is a neo-cloud company that Meta just agreed to buy $27 billion of cloud computing from, is currently valued at $30 billion. They could have bought all three of those and literally catapulted themselves to the forefront of the AI race for less than $80 billion. That would have been $79 million at today's prices. Cost of this $80 billion mistake is that not only are those funds ashes now, but they committed $115 billion in AI capex this year, building out data centers,
Right.
making it impossible for them to pursue their AI goals through acquisition, like I just mentioned. One thing Meta does well is follow trends, but honestly, they have not been a great innovator for a while. They are
Yeah.
not have not been a trendsetter since literally Facebook.
So yeah, I mean, they're just printing money off of ads. At least they have been, historically speaking. But I have a question about this, because wouldn't any CEO, I mean, I think we all know that this whole metaverse bet from Meta was led by Mark Zuckerberg and kind of forced through by him. Wouldn't any responsible board who saw that they just set fire to $80 billion for not really much gain whatsoever, wouldn't they like kick the CEO out faster than, anything else?
Yes and no. There's a lot of respect given to founders that took a company from zero to one and a half. Meta almost reached $2 trillion in market cap
Yeah.
not so long ago. There's a lot of respect given to those founders. I mean, Jeff Bezos took a lot of crazy bets with Amazon, and luckily those paid off. I mean, they
Yeah.
basically, just reinvested every dollar into Amazon and were intentionally unprofitable in order to build out the logistics arm of Amazon. So they basically like featurized FedEx within Amazon.
Yeah.
And that was a long-term bet that paid off. They do get some leeway when they're like the visionary founder. But that being said, there is no accountability for Mark Zuckerberg, because he has super shares that have 70-1 voting ratio. So he owns, I don't know, like 16% of Meta or something.
Yeah.
He could outvote anyone. It doesn't matter what they say. There is no accountability. And that is why, not just in this situation, but in plenty of other situations, Meta does a lot of questionable, not just questionable, like morally dark gray things, like skew more
Yeah.
towards immoral,
Yeah.
that nobody ever holds them accountable for. So basically, they operate like a company with no accountability. And the old ethos of Facebook used to be move fast and break things. That's
Yeah.
kind of been morphed into like just do whatever the fuck you want without consideration for anyone anywhere. And that's
Yeah.
how they operate. I'm not saying that applies to this situation. This situation was really just a bunch of ego, impulsivity, and a lot of money all combined into one. But
Yeah.
I do think that if there was more accountability from a board that could actually take action against the CEO,
Yeah.
they probably would have, made better bets. I mean, they've proven to be really good at following trends. If they had just waited to see that the AI age and the advent of this kind of generative AI that we see today was successful, and then followed that, I mean, they're kind of doing it, but they're not doing it as well as they could be doing it because they don't have the money anymore. Because
Yeah.
now they're spending money on building out data centers and stuff. their models, nobody likes Meta's models. And I'm just
Llama,
saying that,
right? Yeah.
like, yeah, Llama, they're gonna have avocado soon. They just are better off following trends rather than trying to innovate them. That's all I'm saying.
Right. So I have one more L for the week, and actually, this is going to take me back to my home country of Norway. Norway's great in many ways, but it's also really stupid in certain ways, and this really just exemplifies the way we feel like we have to, or we have a culture that kind of makes it so that you have to adhere to rules, even though everybody knows that the rules are quite stupid. So, in the city of Stavanger, which is a southwestern coastal town, there's a giant IKEA warehouse, and the local county governor of Rogaland County and the Norwegian Public Roads Administration decided that they want to promote the use of bicycles instead of people driving to and from different places. And because there's a lot of traffic going to this IKEA warehouse, they want people to, instead of driving their cars there, for the sake of the environment, they want people to encourage riding their bike to IKEA. So through like a really silly and complicated legal process, the local authorities are imposing on IKEA to have a maximum of 183 parking spots for cars, but 1,099 parking spaces for bicycles. Now, Mike, if there's any store you would ride your bike to do your shopping, is it IKEA? If you need some new furniture and a couch and a blanket and some bedding and maybe some frozen meatballs, is that the store you would take your bike to?
I mean, for frozen meatballs, maybe, I don't know, but look, okay, this is the thing about Europe that is so funny. It's like sometimes they do
Mhm.
this shit and it's so logical. You're like, yeah, like we should have the prices for products be inclusive of taxes. Like some of the things they do are so logical and you're like, damn, I wish the US would be that logical. But then some
Yeah,
things they do, you're just like, what, like think about it. Like what's going to happen now? Like people are just going to still drive to IKEA but
but they're
be
just going to be
fighting
fighting
for
over.
spots.
Yes, exactly.
What kind of there's no substitute for what a car could do at IKEA. So
Because think about
maybe
what you
not
buy there.
the
You buy big, heavy products in flat packaging that you have to transport home and put your furniture together.
yeah. And I
You
think
buy
it's
plants, you buy shit that you can't transport on a fucking bicycle.
And I mean, maybe it's different in Europe, but I just feel like if you're trying to create the culture where people just take bikes places instead of cars, I just don't think you're ever going to do that with with IKEA. I think it
No,
needs to be like maybe I don't know if you guys have. Do you guys have like shopping centers? Like those big ass shopping centers that are all over the U.S.
yeah, we have a few of those.
Okay. Yeah, like that would be a place where you could encourage more bikes because you're usually going there for what? Maybe some food, maybe some light shopping or something. Maybe even like groceries. If you have like stuff on your bike to carry groceries, you could see that. But
Mm,
anyway, this is just an
yeah,
example. I think it's just an example of right intentions,
yeah,
really, really like committee designed. I don't know. Is it committee? It's got to be.
yeah.
Everything in Europe is committee designed. Uh,
Exactly. And so here's a quote from one of my favorite Norwegian commentators and writers. He said that this is translated from Norwegian, but he said that it was concluded that they must emphasize the sectoral authorities' assessment of national interests in this case. And so he just kind of capped it off with, which in short means that you have to ride your bike to IKEA to buy a couch.
that is.
Yeah, everything designed by a committee gets you this bullshit.
I'd still rather be in Norway though. All right. His last L of the week, which I think might be the biggest L, is that SpaceX is demanding rule changes to NASDAQ to make its already filthy rich investors richer at everyone else's expense. So they're targeting a $1.75 trillion IPO as early as June, and they're trying to use their leverage to convince NASDAQ to change its rules, which is working. NASDAQ was trying to change the rules so that they will list on the NASDAQ exchange instead of the New York Stock Exchange. Now, remember, these stock exchanges are private companies that make money off of having trades go through their exchanges, right? So
Yeah,
that's you don't think of them as like public entities because they're not. They're private companies. They have
yeah,
to operate with under certain SEC rules, and the proposed rule change is being reviewed by the SEC. I can already guess which way it's going to go.
yeah,
Um, Here's a breakdown. SpaceX wants to IPO 1.75 trillion, as I mentioned. The way an IPO works is that a number of shares are sold to a very inside, very private, very invite-only, exclusive group of investors at
yeah,
a price that a big bank usually helps the company determine. The bank gets a bunch of fees for it. They get access to buying some of those shares. at the IPO price. So that's the IPO. When it
Mm.
goes to the market where you and I can buy it is actually after the IPO. The IPO has already happened. And so what that
Mm.
does is it raises money for the company. It's a liquidation event. And it also sets a share price like on the market so that people can sell their shares eventually.
It's
So
almost like there's a difference between the initial offering to this select group of insiders and the initial public offering, which everybody else
exactly.
gets access to later.
Exactly. Common misconception. That's why I wanted to lay it out because I'm not sure how many people actually understand that how that works.
Yeah.
Um, SpaceX is planning to sell 5%, which is a very small amount of its shares at the IPO, which would raise at 1.75 trillion, $87.5 billion. The company's stock will get listed at whatever share slash price per share that correlates to. But more likely than not, the stock will jump because of there's probably a lot of pent up retail investor, which you could read as poor schmucks, demand, who are going to immediately enrich all those who are lucky enough to be investors in or before the IPO. So it goes on the market, then you and I get to buy it, and probably because it's a hot stock, it will jump in price. So they all get
Hmm.
rich, and we're left buying it at the hot price. But that's fine. We don't have to do that. Nobody's making us do that, right? So that's okay. But here's the thing: NASDAQ rules make companies wait 12 months before being included in their NASDAQ 100 list. And a 5% float is very small. A NASDAQ usually weights companies for inclusion to this list based on the amount of float.
It's not the
SpaceX,
100 biggest companies that's listed on the exchange,
yes, by market capitalization. Yeah,
but is that valid? Is that determined off of that 5% float or something else, or the total amount
exactly.
of shares?
It's based off the float. And so SpaceX wants a couple of changes. They want NASDAQ to put any company in the top 40 in market cap immediately into the NASDAQ 100, to bypass the 12-month waiting period to make it as short as 15 days. And they want to apply a 5x multiplier to their 5% float, which would be $437 billion, immediately making them one of the top 10 biggest companies in the NASDAQ. So then they would be listed in the NASDAQ 100. And according to Reuters, SpaceX is making this a non-negotiable of being listed on the NASDAQ, which is very favorable for the NASDAQ. It's probably the biggest IPO that has ever been done in history. And NASDAQ is clearly drooling over this opportunity, has proposed a fast entry rule to allow companies that rank, like I said, in the top 40 in market cap to be included in the 100 in just 15 days, as opposed to months or years that it normally takes. The reason why it usually takes months or years is because the market needs time to evaluate a company and its fundamentals. We don't have access to its information right away and how it does quarter over quarter.
And it's not like you can do your due diligence on a huge company like SpaceX within 2 weeks or 15 days, essentially.
Yeah, we have information on like what revenue they have today and a lot of information in SEC filings, but there's nothing that replaces quarter over quarter performance and results. So
Yeah.
the key here, this is why this is such a problem. There are passive index funds and investors that must buy all companies in the NASDAQ 100, regardless of price or fundamentals, because that's what the index funds do. If it's a NASDAQ 100 index fund, they have to buy companies in the NASDAQ 100. That's what SpaceX wants to happen. And according to Bloomberg, the S&P 500, which is an index from S&P, is considering removing their 12-month waiting period to include companies in the S&P 500 index. And they're doing that for SpaceX, by the way. Both of these events combined would force funds with a combined estimated $20 trillion in assets to buy SpaceX at a tiny, tiny float, 5% of available SpaceX stocks. So what happens when this crazy demand reaches artificial scarcity? You basically get a Birkin bag. Imagine having $150 billion being forced to buy $87 billion of available stock, and they have to buy it. So they have to keep outbidding each other and raise the price. That means that a $1.75 trillion company would likely become like $3.5 to $5 trillion immediately. And Elon Musk would be worth $1.5 trillion or more himself instantaneously just through
Mm.
bullshit financial engineering. So why is this fucked up? You might think, well, that's a victimless crime, isn't it? No, it's completely
No.
fucked up because one, it's making billionaire investors and the richest man-child who ever lived way richer due just to sheer financial engineering, not fundamentals, not company performance, nothing. And it's not a victimless crime because regular people whose 401ks or portfolios own NASDAQ or S&P 500 index funds will technically be forced to own shares of a company that already has an insanely inflated valuation. $1.75 trillion is like, I don't know, like 90 to 100 times of their current, no, more than 100 times their current revenue.
Yeah.
This is a large private company led by the richest man who probably ever lived, exploiting the markets for his own gain and screwing everyone else over. You will be forced to hold the bag. And if the S&P 500 and NASDAQ are allowed to make this rule change, which is being reviewed by the SEC, it's a very dangerous precedent. Other companies with sufficient leverage would probably do the same thing. Why wouldn't they? Why? It's literally an easy way to enrich your investors.
Yeah.
And then you might even see companies delist themselves, go private, and then go public again just to do the same fucking thing. I truly hope the SEC rejects these proposed rule changes, but my hopes are not high.
Yeah. Considering the way Elon Musk has his fingers in this administration, and they're just, wrapped around his axle at this point
Yeah,
in many ways. Yeah.
Plus, it's all pay to play. So it's like, oh, well, okay, if you let me get in on that IPO, okay, then we're in business now. That's how they've done everything so far. So like, I don't want to say that they are or aren't going to do it because I'm conjecturing, but
Yeah.
that's how everyone in the federal government has operated since Trump came back into power.
Yeah. Great. Love it. Positive note to end on. Well, on that happy note, I think we're going to wrap up for this week. So thanks to everybody for tuning in. If you have any feedback you'd like to share with us, please reach out through any one of our social media channels. You can find us at HogwashPod on Instagram, on TikTok, at YouTube, or you can email us directly at hogwashpod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear any constructive criticism, feedback, praise, compliments, or any shit talk. We're open to everything. We're trying to grow this thing. So please let us know what you think. Give us a rating on one of the podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever. And we hope to see you next week. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, everyone. Ratings are really helpful for us. And of course, we're open to getting better all the time. Love you guys.
All right. Thanks, everyone. See you next week.
And that's a wrap.
That works, right?